Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new edition of KerVAM, a Doctor Who podcast where this, of course, at the moment we are talking about the brand new season of Doctor Who. And so today we're going to be talking about Lucky Day, the 4th episode of season 2. I'm joined by Charlie, Bill and Ryan as always to dissect this episode and dig deep into whether it continues the positive trend of the season so far or whether this was the ending point of that good flow of the season. So Charlie, I'll come to you first today. Initial impressions of Lucky Day, did it continue the positive trend as I say, or do we feel this is where it starts going downhill?
I really enjoyed this. I thought it was great. I'll save my official ranking for the end of the episode, but yeah, I think it again was very, very solid. Obviously I didn't love the robot revolution, but you know, Lux was great. The Well was obviously incredible. This was probably on the same level as Lux in terms of pure enjoyment. I thought it was pretty great. I think it's just creative this season. It just feels like Doctor Who. Russell's being much more sort of innovative than last season, and it wasn't even bad last season. Another Dr. Light story is interesting in an 8-episode season. Like, it's just kind of weird that we're getting like 8 episodes in a season, a Dr. Light story last year, a Dr. Light story this year. A part of me thinks they're more suited to 13-episode seasons. Like, series 2, 3, and 4, we obviously had one each there. But I mean, yeah, so it must be confusing for sort of general audiences wondering, why is the Doctor not in this one? And this is Ncuti's last season, and we're not getting him in an episode. It's just kind of weird.
Are you confirming that for us there then, that it's Ncuti's last season? Is that official Charlie confirmation?
I'm assuming. I mean, I mean, every single week that goes by without a season 3 confirmation is kind of just more sort of worrying for us. But for all we know, they could confirm season 3 and 4 with Ncuti and an update on the Disney deal like tomorrow. We don't know.
Exactly. Absolutely. But yeah, it's really interesting what you say about it being a Dr. Light episode, because a couple of my family members both messaged me going, why is the Doctor not in this episode? What's going on? Like, why is Ruby back? I thought we finished her story last season. Like, and I kind of can see that. I think we're also into it, that we kind of knew Ruby's coming back this year. She's joined UNIT. This was going to be a Dr. Light Ruby episode, but actually for the general public, there doesn't seem a logical reason to suddenly just have an episode without the Doctor in for most of it. I mean, I wonder if maybe it's because they're using a lot of this story to set up the finale with Conrad and everything, which I'm pretty sure that's where that's going. So you can kind of see that, but also I can very much see the general public going, well, this is Doctor Who, I want to see the Doctor. Why did you just randomly decide 3 episodes into this season to not bother? Especially after, as you say, Charlie, we certainly had one. You could argue it's like 1.5 probably with Dot and Bubble as well last season that didn't really have that much of the Doctor in. So as much as I agree with you, Charlie, I really, really like this story. I think it does continue the really positive trend of the season. I think it's just a really clever idea for a story. It's really well explored, obviously, all the different ideas about Conrad as a character and what that's trying to portray about society is really, really interesting. But I can also very much see that for the general audience, they might have been a little bit put off by the story when really, like, they just want to see the Doctor. So I can definitely see that. But Bill, where did you land with this episode? How does it compare to the season so far?
I would say it's continued that pretty positive streak. I feel like, again, it's been like The Whale, for example. It's been another one that, I mean, I've only watched it once, so maybe like watching it a second time, I'll pick up on little details, little things that I missed out that, maybe didn't work quite as well. But just going off the top of my head, I couldn't really think of much that was genuinely quite that was like bad about it or anything. And I think that's like a good sign. It's an interesting episode because it's like I think the twist of it is very unexpected and very left field, and it's kind of, again, it's like you can they could quite easily have done it but in a slightly worse way, and then it feels like it's almost like 2 disjointed ideas trying to be meshed together. But I think they managed to actually pull it off quite well, because it's still there's like little teasers again earlier on with Conrad mentioning, there's people out there who believe that Unit and the aliens are all fake and all this lot, and then you find out that he's one of them. And it's just, yeah, it's just such a. I think from the twist onwards, it is such a emotional whirlwind of an episode, and you're just like, oh my God, like the kind of and I could instantly see the real life parallels that it is very deliberately kind of harkening to, and all this stuff about fake news and all that kind of stuff. And I think it does it pretty well, actually. I think it's very kind of topical, very relevant, I suppose, today. And yeah, I think it is Pete McTighe's like strongest episode by far so far. Because as much as I didn't mind the majority of KerVAM, that it's definitely way better than that, and Praxis definitely.
Yeah, I mean, Praxis just feels like such a forgettable episode of Doctor Who. Like, it's just one of those mid-Chibnall ones that you just don't even think about.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just, it's kind of then, I think, fueled my potential. I think it's safe to say that, like, in terms of who could potentially succeed Russell, I think Pete McTighe is certainly at least a name to watch out for, I think now, because I think he's definitely got potential as a potential showrunner.
No, I can definitely see that, he's developing good stories. We obviously know he's heavily involved in the War Between the Land and the Sea as well as the spin-off, so that could also sort of suggest that. I'm still kind of the opinion that I think we just need somebody left field who's nothing to do with Doctor Who to come in and take it over and refresh it. But I agree, if they were going to go for kind of, I suppose you'd say, a safer choice, I feel like he would be quite a good choice to kind of continue Doctor Who in the way it kind of currently is. And he's obviously a big Doctor Who fan and knows a lot about the show, so would, I guess keep the continuity good and all that kind of stuff. That would definitely be there. But yeah, no, I fully agree with you. I think the twist, like, I feel like I knew that Conrad was going to be a villain and a bad person. Like, I felt like from what I'd heard and read, not from leaks, but just you just kind of absorbed that was probably what was going to happen. But as you're watching those first 20 minutes, he's such a nice character. He comes across as such a nice character towards Ruby, so caring and whatever, and gentle. And that moment, that twist, I think it was brilliant. I think that's such a clever idea to have the monster they've already established in the story having people dress up as it and kind of fake it all. I thought that was such a clever way to do it and to reveal it that way. I thought it really took me off guard. So I felt that really heightened the story, and then you continue that drama through the rest of the episode, as you say, Bill. That worked, I think, really effectively. But yeah, Ryan, where did you land with this story? Was it as positive as the rest of us?
Yeah, I think this is again 3 for 3 with looks, the well, and this being really solid. I mean, looking at this season so far, if we include the Christmas special, I enjoyed Joy to the World. I thought that was better than Church and Ruby Road. Not perfect, but it was still a fun adventure. Did not vibe with Robot Revolution.
Just me who liked it.
Yeah, as I said, I thought it was all surface, but no depth, all style and no substance kind of thing. And I feel like, I'm just surprised that the other three we've got so far, like looks, the well, and now this, have just been straight up bangers across the board. It's I just hope it continues that trend. I thought it was one of the better Dr. Light episodes that we've had. I thought, as you mentioning, I liked how it was kind of tackling the topic of fake news and conspiracy theorists and how people can to use misinformation for their own personal gain or profit or anything. And it's just such a clever. I thought it was one of the better way of how to tackle that, because as we all know, when something happens, sometimes you would get crazies, liars, or all this other things that like to twist the truth. And I thought it was such a great way of sort of tackling that subject. And Conrad is easily one of the most despisable villains in history. I think it's fair to say. I mean, I had a feeling he was going to be a villain going into it. I heard from some of set photos, what could be the finale, that it seemed like it's like he's could be set up as a villain, and this definitely confirms it. And I thought, and you have to say, Jonah Hauer-King did such a great job as Conrad. I think he's such a good villain for this season, and it kind of helps give it the stakes that I think it needs. I think the show definitely needs, and it was good seeing Ruby again. And they, just like 73 Yards last year, this does a good job of just how good Ruby can be as a character, and how well she can be. And as I said before, my problem with Ruby last season was the fact that there was this mystery surrounding her that was just dragging her character down, and but what we needed was more time with her and the Doctor, of their relationship, and I'm glad that now that we've got all that mystery nonsense out of the way, we can properly focus on Ruby, and her going through the emotional ringer this season. It was such a, again, really good how they managed to do it, and seeing more of Unit, and just again Kate Lethbridge-Stewart going through an emotional whirlwind of her own, and seeing how we could be getting repercussions of that, not just possibly with the season finale, but also with the war between the land and the sea as well. And so that does have me at least a bit more interested in the spin-off than I already was. So that's at least a positive. And funny, and with Conrad being part of Think Tank, I'm kind of glad, and it does make me wonder if it's the same Think Tank from Robots, because
I saw.
So there was that also had a Think Tank group, and it does have me wonder if after Conrad's failed interview at Unit, maybe Think Tank indoctrinated him into their cause, and he slowly moved up the ranks.
Quite possibly, yeah.
It's possible. I mean, Think Tank certainly have a beef with Unit after what happened with Robots, so of course they would want to try and get back at them in any way that they can. So,
is that we set up for the finale then, being like Think Tank trying to come back after Robot, and there's like Sutek, there's a lot of flashbacks to Robot, and we have a Tales from the TARDIS of Robot, and it's just them trying to get revenge against Unit for what happened in 1974.
That would be so amazing if they did that. And again, I don't know if they actually confirmed it's the same Think Tank.
No, I don't think they did. But
I hope it is, because it would make sense, because we saw in Robot that they do have very strong views, shall we say. So
yes.
Of course, as I said, they certainly have a grudge against Unit. So of course they would spend all these years trying to get back at them and get revenge. So, and having Conrad be part of it, it makes perfect sense. And and as you mentioned, Pete McTighe, this is definitely his best story, easily his best story.
Yeah.
The Blam, I did enjoy for the most part, but as I said, the ending just completely let it down. I thought that was just nonsensical. And Praxius, what even was that story, really? What even was it?
It's just one that should have had like Sea Devils or Autons or something in it, and instead had nothing, and was pretty terrible. Yeah.
Definitely. And he's definitely, as I said, if we had to have another person take over from Russell who was involved in Doctor Who, Pete McTighe would be a more sensible choice. I feel like, not just because of he's written these episodes, but also the fact that he is a mega fan, and he's been involved with, I think he was involved with the Blu-ray collection, that he's been an part of it. So it makes sense that if anyone should take over from Russell, and if it has to be someone who was part of the show, I think Pete McTighe would be the safest choice, even though personally I think fresh blood was definitely needed.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, Pete McTighe for the Blu-rays, he's written a lot of the trailers, the ones that were filmed for the releases, and he's also, I think he writes all the notes, like in the booklets. I think he writes all the information that goes in there as well. So he's a super fan. There's no denying that. And it is cool, of course, to have fans working on the show. But yeah, sometimes it needs a bit of fresh blood as well. So Charlie, thinking about Ryan's covered it a little bit there, but thinking about the characters of this episode, I feel like for me, Ruby, this is probably my favourite performance of like the most I bought into her as a character and liked her as a character in this story compared to last season. I think, as Ryan said, the kind of mystery was maybe holding her back a little bit. And also, I think this might have been the best performance of Kate Lethbridge Stewart as well. I think that actually her character kind of got more to do and, more of an emotional moment than really we've ever seen with her character. So how did you, what do you think of the different characters that we sort of saw in this story that we don't really see the rest of the season?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think Kate's always kind of been weird for me because I feel like everyone seems to really enjoy her character. I've never kind of got it. I haven't had an issue with her as such, but it's kind of just she's the brigadier, but she's not. It's just sort of a placeholder. Kind of, we need a leader for unit. I've never really cared for her character that much, but this episode absolutely has cemented her as, the next brigadier. I think it's a shame she doesn't have that title because that would just be a nice callback. But I get it. But yeah, like you said, the moment where she releases the shriek onto to Conrad is obviously the highlight, and she's like, I'm glad the doctor's here because he would have stopped me from doing this. That whole moment was just great. The whole ending was kind of funny in a sense because it just had the shriek just kind of biting Conrad's arm. He screams and then it just cuts immediately. That was quite funny, and that was the climax of the episode.
Yeah.
But it's not about the action of the episode, is it? It's about obviously think tank and all of that. And yeah, Ruby was amazing in this. Really, I think it's kind of a shame because it's like with Clara, season 7B, I guess. But she had the same amount of episodes in that as Ruby did in season 1. So she was more actually, which isn't great.
Yeah.
But she was just like mystery box filler character. She had no character, just like Ruby in season 1, because the whole mystery was who is her mum. Then it gets resolved in a weird anticlimactic way in both instances, I think.
Yeah.
And then this could have been kind of series 8 Clara, where I think she's way better, except the fact that Ruby actually isn't the companion of season 2, and she's already gone, except for this one episode and the finale. And I think she was great in this episode, and it just made me kind of annoyed that we have this new companion already, when we could have had this great version of Ruby be just the companion through the season. Because I think she isn't my favorite companion of New Who, but she's really enjoyable for me, probably on the same level as Clara, to be honest. After this episode and 73 yards, she's proved, Millie Gibson's proved she's a brilliant actress throughout, 73 yards and Lucky Day. And it's kind of a shame that, obviously we don't know what's happening with Doctor Who after season 2, but the finale might be her last appearance as well, which is a shame because I'd like to see her again in the future. I think it's a shame that we didn't get to see Mel in this episode. Obviously they mentioned that she's investigating something over by Sydney or something, which basically means just Mel's not in this episode.
Essentially.
Yeah, which is a shame because she's always fun to watch. I'm thinking she's in the finale. I can't remember if she's in the trailer.
Sure there's a shot in the trailer of her in the finale.
Yeah, nice. It's a shame we didn't see her then, just make a more sort of cohesive unit family. But there wasn't really a place for her in the story, was there?
No, true.
Yeah. But yeah, honestly, a great episode. I think, obviously, and it's worth mentioning as well, I think the Doctor was actually great when he was in this episode. In the final scene where the TARDIS materializes around Conrad and he's giving that speech, he felt very doctory there. I think he's kind of, like last season he was good and I enjoyed watching him, but I feel like this season he's become sort of capital D Doctor. The same way I think Jodie did in like The Power of the Doctor. He was very, very good here, and I think he's just sort of cemented himself properly as the Doctor, and he's great. And it's annoying because again, this season's making me want a season 3 and 4 with Ncuti, Ruby, and Belinda.
Yeah, exactly.
But which it might not happen, which is a real shame because I think he's just, all the writers this season are just absolutely killing it. And yeah, again, you guys have said it already. Conrad was great, a great villain. I think it's making me slightly nervous for the finale because we have Conrad and we have Think Tank bringing down Unit. We also have all the stuff about Belinda. And Ruby's going to be in it. All of Unit is with Mel. And we have a pantheon thing somewhere, because of course we will. It's kind of just it's kind of a season 1 case as well, where we have 2 different like things going on at the same time, and I'm very worried that it's just going to be sort of messy and not very focused, the same way Legend of Ruby Sunday Empire of Death was.
Yeah.
Which I feel like this season's enjoyment for me is just going to boil down to how the finale's resolved. The same way with Empire of Death, because even episode 7 last season, Legend of Ruby Sunday, I thought was great, but
yeah.
I'm just quite worried that we're going to have another weird, overstuffed finale. And obviously, Susan Flood was in this episode. Mrs. Flood. I'm getting confused with Susan Twist.
That's great. I love it. Well, she basically is Susan Twist of this season. So
exactly. I'm getting that confused because they both serve the exact same function as old woman who appears every episode.
Yes, literally the only difference is Mrs. Flood is aware of who she is, whereas Susan Twist wasn't. Like, that's the only difference.
And did she say like she was called the governor or something? Is this just...
I mean, that's just because she's in the prison. Like a governor is like the prison officer type person.
It sounds like a Time Lord title.
I also know what you mean. Yeah, I mean, I mean, it's inevitable. Obviously, now Mrs. Flood and Conrad are going to form an alliance for the finale. It's obviously going that way. But yeah, no, I do agree with you. So, Bill, obviously, this story how do you think it worked with the bringing in an unseen story, essentially, from the first season that wasn't there, with the Doctor and Ruby and the Shriek that we saw set? Was it after the Devil's Cord, I think? Or was it before? Just before Devil's Cord? One or the other. How do you think that kind of idea of slotting that in and kind of slotting Conrad into this unseen story and kind of using that to start the whole episode off, how do you think that worked?
I thought it made for a pretty good opening. It was kind of like, I suppose it is kind of a kind of Love and Monsters type of opening.
Yeah, I was very Monsters vibe at first 10 minutes.
Yeah. Where it's literally just this bystander coming in right in the middle of this adventure, and then the Doctor and companion kind of wander off, and then this bystander's left kind of like, Earth just happens. I think, it was done pretty well. Again, obviously, like with Conrad, it's obviously later on we know what kind of character he is, but I think early on in the episode it's quite difficult to tell that reveal is coming, because apart from little hints, as I said, with Trolls Online and stuff, it's very unexpected, and you don't really get much, I think, in that opening either, in terms of like what his real motivation is for being there, in terms of trying to expose the Doctor and unit for supposedly lying to the public and everything about aliens. But yeah, I quite liked just having a little unseen adventure, because again, it's just more time, more kind of screen time, I suppose, for the 15th Doctor and Ruby when they were traveling together. Even though I feel like, if anything, Ruby, the reason why Ruby works so well in this episode, and I feel like she's almost been kind of redeemed because of this episode, is because she's not with the Doctor, and because she's got this kind of PTSD or trauma from traveling with the Doctor, and that then makes me look at her time traveling in a whole new light now, because now I'm thinking, actually, that's the character substance we kind of needed from her in the last season, and we finally got it. It's after she's left the Doctor, which is kind of a shame, because it would have been better to have had it during that season, but it's still really good to see, because again, it just redeems her for me and makes me just realize that she is a much more fleshed out character than she was last season, and and that whole, it's just a really interesting, I think, angle for a sort of ex-companion or companion to explore with, in terms of like, because it seems like very normal to then be just a little bit traumatized, like to have enjoyed traveling, but to have been a little bit traumatized by all these monsters and gods and stuff that she went up against.
Yeah.
And to kind of still be struggling to come to terms with her life after all of that. I think that's, I hope we get at least some kind of continuation of that in the finale. As Charlie said, it's going to be pretty overstuffed, so I'm not expecting loads of it. It's probably going to be like a line or two at most. But just anything, I think, will be quite good to see.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's really, really well highlighted there. I think that's a really key point of this story, actually. That is that development of her character quite significantly. That almost she was just along for the ride in season 1. To an extent, for her, it was also about trying to find her mum as well. I feel like that kind of motivated a lot of her travel. And then actually, now that she's stopped, it's kind of all hit her, and she can't just be a normal person anymore because of going through all those experiences. And I feel like that's something that hasn't been explored with too many companions through the years. I can't think of many times where we've kind of picked up the companion a year later and gone, oh, actually, they're feeling the effects of this. So as you say, Bill, I'm really interested to see how that kind of impacts in the finale as well. Like, obviously, the Doctor and Ruby are going to meet again in the finale. I think that's inevitable. So I'm really intrigued to see how that kind of interaction goes and whether she's like tempted to go back in the TARDIS with the Doctor again, because she chose to leave. So I don't think the Doctor's going to be like, no, you can't come back again, if she wanted to go. So I'm really interested to see how that kind of plays out. And also, I just think it's we sort of talked about like the fact that Ruby only left after 1 season. I'm just really intrigued why it's all happened the way that it has. Like, from a production point of view, why did we only have Ruby for 1 season? Why did they decide to get rid of her at the end of season 1? Because I'm sure I've read an interview where Russell said that we always sign Millie Gibson on for 2 seasons, and she's in both seasons, as you can see, so that confirms that it was true. And when Varada Sethu was in Boom, there wasn't a plan for her to become the companion in the next season. So I'm just really intrigued and don't understand why they decided to get to stand, say goodbye to Ruby at the end of season 1, but then still include her in season 2 and have a new companion in season 2. That just kind of seems a slightly odd way of doing things when the seasons are so short. Like, it's literally 8 episodes. We've had Ruby in 10 episodes of Doctor Who now, maybe, which is not even a full season of normal Doctor Who. Like, of series 1 to 10, it's not even a full season. Like, that just doesn't feel quite right to me. So I don't know, it's very odd. Ryan, what do you think of this whole Ruby situation?
Yeah, it's weird because because we mentioned that she was great in 73 yards, I also rewatched Boom again recently. Because obviously it's such a phenomenal episode, and I think it's still my favourite of this RTD2 so far. Having been watching it, I think it's still my favourite. And Ruby's also really good in that as well. As how great she is in that, especially in a very extreme situation. And so it did make me think back, looking back at last season, maybe this whole thing of her mystery of her mother and all that, maybe they should have resolved it all at the end of her first story. I think they should have resolved it all at the very end. The Doctor finds it for her. She finds her real mum. They all have Christmas together. And then, like, Boxing Day, the day after, she goes to travel with the Doctor. We have all this season, no mystery. And then, of course, she takes on Sutek, have the 2-part finale all be about Sutek, nothing else. And then at the end, she's kind of a little bit like feels like she's been through the ring with it. And she's like, okay, I need to take a break from this. And then that's when she chooses to leave. And it feels like maybe it would have felt a bit more elegant and a bit more in line with where we see her in Lucky Day, and that not have that whole mystery sort of drag everything down. It's weird because there were definitely moments in season 1, especially in Boom and 73 Yards, where Ruby is a good companion. You can see she's a good match for Shooty. I mean, that moment in Boom where he's saying, just throw that, I think it was that smelted remains. He says, throw it to me instead of Bart. And she says, no, I'm going to go up and I'm going to give it to you. And the Doctor says,
yeah,
I believe he said, if this doesn't work, you're the bravest person I've ever met. And if it does work, I'm going to be very angry with you. And that's such a great moment. And again, and also in 73 Yards, where we see just how, again, she's just put through it without the Doctor, and she's having to go through this alternate lifetime haunted by this spectre. And so it's there's, as I said, I think season 1, I just wished it was executed better, the whole structure of season 1, because I can tell in that last season there is the foundations for something greater.
Yeah.
there. You can tell there's a better season in there that's waiting to come out. And I think we are seeing a bit more of that definitely with this season. But again, at the same time, it's kind of like, is the 8 to 9 episode structure holding all of this down? Is some of these story arcs holding all of this down? Or especially the series openers and all this thing, these different factors. And I think shooting, and despite how great some of these stories have been, as I said, I've mentioned Boom, 73 Yards, and Lux and the Well, and all good stories. I'm just wondering if Russell, Shooty, Millie, and Varada, are they trying to make the best of a bad situation that they've been dealt with by this shorter season count and just this air of uncertainty of what's happening now? Because again, we don't know if there's going to be another season after this. I mean, for me, looking at the situation, I feel like we could be facing one of 3 possible outcomes.
Okay.
For this again. Do you want me to mention it now? Do you want me to save it?
Let's. I want to cover a couple more bits on the story, and then we'll go into, because at the end I want to also bring up the fact that they're showing the finale. They're showing it in cinemas, and they're showing it live at 7 p.m. and they're not releasing the story early. So there's some interesting things there. So we'll come to that at the end. I just want to cover off a couple more aspects of the story, and then we'll come back to that.
But yeah, it's just, I could definitely see in the last season, as I said, there's the foundation of a better season in there somewhere. And again, a better Doctor companion dynamic with the Doctor and Ruby. But again, I think maybe because of the fact that we don't see them much together in the last season as well, because in 73 Yards, well, obviously they're separated for nearly the entire story. Dot and Bubble, we hardly see them. Rogue, they're separated virtually most
whole
of the
story,
And it kind of like, if you want to establish your Doctor companion dynamic, you need to see a lot of them together. And again, despite how good the stories are, I think we need a stronger dynamic. And again, no mystery weighing everything down. And maybe this just comes back to my problem. Maybe they just needed more episodes. They just needed more episodes. And again, more of Ruby. No mystery box tying it down, because again, look what happened with Clara. We saw how that happened with Series 7B. It was a nonsensical arc that led to a very, again, not that great resolution with Name of the Doctor, because again, as you mentioned, the whole going through time, in the Doctor's timeline, that didn't have any repercussions at all. We didn't see any of the after effects of that. You think you would expect that, having multiple Claras throughout the Doctor's timeline, you would expect them to do it, but no, they just ignored it after that. And again, it was just like, what was even the point of all of that anyway? It's
indeed.
It's the same situation here. This whole, especially considering what the outcome was for Ruby's mother, what was the point of all of that mystery to begin with? It didn't add anything. It was just a complete waste of time. And again, that's why the 2-part finale suffered, because we spent so much time with that when we should have been focusing more on Sutek and everything going on there. It's this season, considering how brilliantly Ruby was done here, how we saw how, again, just how put through the ringer Unit was as well, and considering how good of a dynamic the Doctor and Belinda have so far, it just has me hoping that at least they got this worked out. Again, all the problems that plagued last season, they've got it right this time around, and we do get a good finale out of it. I'm really hoping. Again, hopefully it's not we don't get multiple storylines fighting for attention like we did last season.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree with you. I think this finale is going to be a very important one. And as I say, in a minute, we will tackle some of the theories and thoughts around that. But Charlie, I just wanted to touch on the kind of, for want of a better word, I don't want to say political is the wrong word, but the actual storyline of Think Tank, of the whole unit is fake. It's making everything up. They're all actors. It's all lies. It's all fake news. That kind of idea that we're obviously comparing to today's world of, people criticising any organisation, saying that anything is fake, it's not real, they're spending taxpayers' money and they shouldn't be doing it, and all this kind of stuff. So how well do you think that works in this story? Do you think it's an effective parallel? And I feel like in the past, especially I think in the Chibnall era, Doctor Who got criticised for being too preachy, for want of a better word, especially at the end of like Orphan 55 or something like that, is probably the most egregious example of the Doctor just talking to camera and going, "You're terrible, world." How do you think that it actually works within this story?
I think in the context of the season, it's a bit weird. Not because it's necessarily a bad episode or a bad idea to do, but it's kind of just, it doesn't really have a place in this kind of tone of a season. Like, it's kind of season 7. I think translate that to 1970, it would make perfect sense. It would fit right in because season 7 is a very dark, gritty, political kind of season. And this, I don't really think it works sort of, in the context of the rest of the season. Like, we've got Robot Revolution, we've got Lux, we've got The Well, all completely different episodes to this. I get the Doctor Who's a variety show and it is a different thing each week. It does just feel a little bit strange how I think it would have fit even better in Series 12. Not that units existed in Series 12. I guess if Series 13 wasn't Flux and actually existed and it wasn't because of COVID and everything, we could have fit even better in here. If we had like Kate Stewart and unit in Series 13 if it existed. But obviously it didn't. Not like that. But I think it was pretty well done, all things considered. I think it's a creative concept. The idea that another organization is trying to bring unit down. I think it's a fascinating idea, a really like creative concept. But yeah, it is just kind of, and I think the preachiness, it's still kind of there. And I've never had an issue with Doctor Who being, woke, like all the, like all the not my doctors. Used to talk about back in the day. I've never had an issue with that, obviously, but I think it's not quite as bad as like Orphan 55, Rosa, where Chibnall would just get Jodie just kind of talking to the audience like they're a class of primary school children. We didn't really have that quite as badly here. There was a kind of obvious speech at the end to get the message across, which, I mean, it doesn't ruin the episode. As such, I think it's definitely toned down from, Kablam, Orphan 55, all of that. I don't hate the concept of it, and I think it's a really creative idea having this think tank. I think it would be cooler if we did get a little robot flashback, like you said as well. I thought that'd be hilarious how we have 2 seasons in a row where the finale links to an early Fourth Doctor story for some reason. But yeah, I mean, I think, it's just a little weird in the context of the season. But if it sets up the finale and the finale's good, it will make a lot more sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's quite an I get what you're saying. I think it's quite an interesting development of UNIT as an organisation, because I feel like in the long distance past, UNIT was meant to be a very secretive organisation that people didn't really know anything about. And even earlier in New Who, I feel like the government knew about UNIT, but it was pretty meant to be kept relatively quiet. And then it got completely, taken apart. Like, they stopped funding it and it was gone in like 2019, 2020 time. And then it obviously came back, all guns blazing, 2023. Suddenly they've got this massive, well, I guess Power of the Doctor as well, but that tower got blown up. And then another tower in the 6th anniversary. And now it's like everybody's heard of UNIT. Everybody knows about UNIT. And that's kind of created this then situation of the people rising up against it and saying, it's all fake, aliens aren't real, why are you doing all this stuff? I think that's a really interesting idea to explore, and to see that development of UNIT as an organisation, that actually they've almost become too big for their boots. And so people are taking so much notice of them that they're getting a lot of negative attention, and then people who are going crazy and saying it's all fake and things, which is also kind of odd, because I feel like there's been so many alien invasions of Earth that surely these people must have experienced that. But then I guess that's also is like conspiracy theorist people in real life who will, deny the existence of like flat earthers or whatever. I don't know, like people who deny anything, no matter what evidence is put in front of them, they'll say it's wrong. So you can kind of see that it is actually quite a real concept that you can see in today as well. So I can kind of see how it works quite well.
I think the title of the finale, The Reality War, again, that must be something to do with that. Think tank, get people to sort of riot against UNIT. They don't know what's real and what's not from the past. I think it'd be cool if we get flashbacks of like Stolen Earth, Journey's End, all of that, and you could get people saying it's like all fake, all AI or something like that. I think that title probably has something to do with that, or it's something to do with the gods of Ragnarok, like you were saying.
Yes, please. Yeah, it's all going to be a TV show. Just you wait. Just you wait. It's going to be great. Absolutely. No, I absolutely agree with you. And so, Bill, finally, kind of, I guess bringing it to the end of this story and thinking about the rest of the season, we obviously saw Mrs. Flood again. We see her right at the end of the story. I was about 2 minutes left, and I was like, we haven't seen Mrs. Flood yet, and I know she's in this story, so she's obviously about to turn up. And then we see the back of a person walking up towards Conrad, and you're like, yep, it's definitely going to be Mrs. Flood. So we said last week, there's been no development of this storyline yet, so it's kind of just annoying. I feel like we kind of still have that to an extent, apart from now going, oh, she's probably going to team up with Conrad. We don't really know anything more, do we? It feels like we're still in the same place, waiting for the finale to happen and what Mrs. Flood's actually going to be all about.
Yeah, it's a strange thing, really, because it is literally just, it's already been said, but it's literally just Susan Twist stuff all over again. Yeah. It's literally just this woman that keeps appearing, and that's all the mystery really is at the minute. There's no kind of there's not really as such any indication of who exactly she is. There's not really kind of any indication of what exactly she's doing, popping up all the time, and what her motivations are, like leading into finale or anything like that. The most we get, as you say, is literally just there's a very strong chance that she's teaming up with Conrad in some way for the finale. I don't know. I've seen various things out there, and I don't know what to believe at this point in terms of who she is, who she isn't, and her relationship with Conrad and all this lot. And it's a weird one, because at this point, any of the ideas that have been leaked or rumored, I feel, I think it's more the execution and how the finale kind of does it all.
Yeah.
I think they could be done quite well, but then, if you'd have said to me last season, having the idea of Sutek come back and all this kind of stuff, I'd have been like, oh, that sounds really good. But then obviously the execution of it, not so good.
Yeah.
So it just depends, I think, in terms of what exactly the finale is going to do with her, because we know that it's pretty likely the Eurovision episode is going to basically reveal her. Yes. And that will be the cliffhanger to lead into the finale.
Yeah.
So we really haven't got too much longer now to find out who she is, which feels quite strange. But again, it's that thing, isn't it, of having short 8-episode seasons. I suppose at least one benefit is with these mystery boxes, there's not too long to find out what they are. Even if the payoff isn't
episodes,
even if the payoff isn't that great, it's at least you're not left for too much longer kind of wondering.
Yeah, exactly. And so, well, Ryan, just before we touch on the finale, next week's episode, The Story in the Engine, I feel like this is probably going to be the last normal episode of Doctor Who for quite a while, because we kind of all know that Instead of Song Contest is probably going to be 35 minutes of a normal episode and then 10 minutes of whatever the finale is going to be about. So what do you expect from The Story in the Engine based on the little trailer we've seen and what little we do know about the story?
It certainly seems like it's going to be a pseudo-historical story involving a giant spider. What's going on there? Could that be something to do with the Pantheon, the Pantheon of Discord? Maybe that giant spider is I think, is it that the god Anansi? Is it that? It could be something to do with that. It's definitely, it looks different, because I think it's all like set in Nigeria and again, just I have no idea what's going on with this giant spider at all. Why that's it's definitely going to be. It's interesting, and it's weird that it's probably going to be the last normal Doctor episode of this season, and who knows, maybe a while. It's going to be interesting.
Absolutely, yeah. I feel like I don't really kind of have that much of an impression of what the story's going to be, apart from, as you say, it's sort of a historical feel, but it's definitely not a historical. They're like on a spider or something in some way linked to a giant spider, and there's a mysterious character called the Barber that I think is going to be the kind of villain or something of the story, and it's all about stories because it's called The Story in the Engine. So I'm intrigued how that, again, you know, Doctor is all just a story and it's not real. So that's obviously what's going to play into this episode. No, but yeah, I'm very intrigued to see what's going to happen there. And so, Charlie, just before we finish, let's just touch on the finale. I said we would, and we've obviously heard in the last, I think it was this week. Yeah, pretty sure it was this week, about this cinema screening for the finale, which is going to be at like 6-7 o'clock in the evening, and they're not going to release the episode early. Well, it seems it's not been confirmed, but it seems pretty apparent that's what's going to happen. They're not going to release the episode early at 8 a.m. like they've been doing for the whole of, well, midnight last season, 8 o'clock in the morning this season. They've suddenly decided for the just for the finale that they're going to change that. So does that suggest to us that there's some pretty big happenings? Because like they did a midnight cinema screening last year, so they clearly could have done an 8 a.m. cinema screening if they wanted to and didn't want to put this episode out later, but they've specifically done this. So regeneration at the end of the story, something major. What do we think?
I immediately thought regeneration.
Yeah.
Truthfully, it might not be that. It might just be they want it at the same time as broadcasts. They want it, they don't want it on iPlayer just yet to avoid spoilers. That might just be it.
Yeah.
It could just be they don't want anyone getting spoiled about the finale, so they go and see it in cinemas. I'm considering seeing it in cinema. I might do. I'm not sure. Just because I'm back at home. Why not? But it's I really hope it's not a regeneration, because I'm actually really liking Ncuti's Doctor, and I think perfect world we get like I said, Russell tomorrow says, we're doing season 3 and 4 with Ncuti. It's all great. We're going to get a season late 2026 and then early 2028 or something. It's all going to be good. But I really hope it's not a regeneration, especially because if it is, we're not getting the next Doctor. It's going to be an open-ended one, just like the original Power of the Doctor with Jodie just regenerating on the cliff, and that was it. I don't want that. Just for obvious reasons, I just don't.
That just is a bad sign for the show if you're ending a story with an open regeneration. Like that's just we have no future plans.
Exactly. Yeah, I think if Ncuti is leaving, the best thing to do is really try and convince him to get him to do a special in 2027, get him to regenerate at the end of that, and then bring in the next Doctor for a season later that year. I think that just makes sense. Yeah, but I think I can't see a regeneration actually happening. I know it kind of looks like that, and that was my initial thought, but I think that's just too crazy, and I think we would have heard more about it if there was.
It would have leaked. If there was a new actor being cast as the Doctor who's going to regenerate in the last episode, unfortunately, it would just leak. It's inevitable.
Yeah, exactly. And there's no official announcement of Ncuti leaving yet.
No.
If there was a regeneration, they surely would have announced that.
Yes.
They wouldn't have said details, but they would have said Ncuti is leaving. Like that just would have happened by now. It's very, very weird. I think, truthfully, it's not going to be that big a deal, and it's just because of spoilers. But we'll see.
Maybe Susan's coming back, and they want to keep that a secret. That might be what it is. So, Ryan, you said you had your 3 ideas of what's going to happen at the end of the season. What are they?
Or maybe 4. The first one, which who knows, this probably won't happen, but it's a quick one. That suddenly Disney announced they are renewing the deal, and Ncuti got one, Millie Gibson and Van Sether come back, and it's all happily going from there. But considering how Disney and the BBC haven't really announced anything regarding that, it does have me a little bit concerned. And that just leaves 3 other options. One, they find another streamer deal.
Yeah.
Another deal with another streamer, presumably Amazon Prime, Sony. I think they're really the only ones.
Yeah, maybe Apple TV, but
I think maybe Apple, but definitely not like Netflix or anything like that. There's no way they would do that. I think Amazon Prime probably would be the most likely.
Yeah, I agree.
So deal with a streamer. Second option, it goes back to BBC. They make it in-house, but for a lower budget and presumably lower episode counts.
Yeah.
We get it's out, and we'll get either a series of specials scattered throughout the year, akin to David Tennant's last year or Jodie Whittaker's last year, or a 5 to 6 episode like mini-series event like Flux. We could be just getting that now on if it's back at BBC.
Yeah.
Or it gets put on hiatus again, and we enter Wilderness Years 2, Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah. It feels like it could be any of those. I mean, maybe the cinema screening is so that at the end of the episode they can put a big slide up on screen going Doctor Who will return in 2026 or something, because it's all renewed and it's all happy days. But I think that's unlikely.
It'll be weird if Shooty does leave at the end of this. It will be weird if that happens. I mean, they did mention that they finished filming for all these seasons back in early last year. I think they finished filming, and then
July last year was the end of filming on season 2, but then they, as you say, did pickups in I think February, March this year. They were doing some more last minute filming, which it's not abnormal to do pickups on shows. Like, it isn't like completely out of the blue, but also it's obviously going to create rumors that they're changing the ending of the episode, or something is new is being added to the end of the finale.
Either again we could get a surprise regeneration that stops halfway through, or it could be just like a survival, like what happened at the end of Captain with Survival. They just they solve the situation, and the Doctor and companion just walk off into the distance.
Yeah, and I feel like the last shot, it would be only in that scenario. It would be only appropriate for the last shot to be the Doctor drinking a cup of tea. I think that would be how it has to end after that speech in Survival. Like it's just got to sit there, sit in his chair in the TARDIS, sipping a cup of tea, and then it just fades to black, and that's the end of Doctor Who forever. It's basically the vibes. But Bill, I'll come to you last. Have you got any theories on this whole finale, end of the series situation?
I don't know, because it's a weird one, isn't it? Because we are in such a strange position with the Disney deal, and whether it's going to get renewed, whether it isn't.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it might be the case that Disney had just kind of biding their time a bit, and that there will be a season 3. Whether it's with Shooty or not, we do not know at this point. I would like it to be. I would like him to at least do the standard 3 seasons, because I feel like, especially with the short amount of episodes we get nowadays, we need at least 3 seasons, I think, to at least kind of gel with his Doctor and kind of get used to him, and then have someone new take over. But it is so tricky to say what is the more likely option at the minute, because I feel like with a hiatus, for example, I don't know if it would be a definite, like, Doctor Who's not coming back ever. I feel like worst case scenario, it's like a break for a few years, and then it returns to in-house with the BBC and Bad Wolf or something like that. And then we get maybe like, we get something like Flux again, but it's more just like a standard season, but with 5 or 6 episodes now. Then that'll be even less amount of Doctor Who that we're getting. But it's just bizarre, because there's so many ways it could go. I feel like with a hiatus, if it's just for a year, maybe it is literally just for next year, that would be fine. I would be fine with that. I mean, I know Russell, I think early on said, there's going to be no more gap years. Well, if a hiatus happens next year, there will be a gap year. But it would be tricky, I think, for them, even if they started filming season 3 like tomorrow. I think it would be tricky for them to get it out for next year. Like, even towards the end of next year, I think it would be quite difficult with how long it seems to take them nowadays to not just produce it, but then the post-production process and everything. It seems to be taking longer and longer.
I think there's a very minimal chance that we're getting a season of Doctor Who next year. I mean, if Shuji Gatwa is sticking around, we obviously know he's in a theatre production through the autumn of this year. So realistically, if he's staying as the Doctor, he's not filming any Doctor Who until I think at least November or December. And there's no chance there. If they start filming in November or December, there's no chance that's coming out in 2026. So unless it is a new Doctor that turns up at the end of the finale and then they start filming in July, then we might get a season next year. But I think that's the only scenario. And as you say, Bill, Russell said very, very clearly, like 2 years ago, there's going to be no more gap years. We're going to have seasons every year. It's going to be great. So clearly something has changed in the last year, 18 months, from that point where it was so clear and sure and set in stone that was what was going to happen, to now complete uncertainty about it. And it's just so hard to read, because I feel like in the past, like, viewing figures were kind of a thing you could vaguely look at and go, oh yeah, the show's doing all right, or it's not. Whereas now viewing figures are so kind of irrelevant, and Disney Plus doesn't release any real information on viewers, that you can't really gauge how many people are watching the show and what the impression of the show is at all. So it's just a complete unknown. And we just have to wait. As you say, Charlie, we keep waiting. Tomorrow they could suddenly say, that's it, we've got a new season, or that's it, no we haven't, or Shooty's leaving, or Shooty's staying. Like, anything could happen. It's just a weird, complete unknown situation. And well, we're just gonna have to see how the future plays out, and at least enjoy these next 4 episodes, because who knows how much more of it we're going to get. And so I feel like we've had a very, very good run so far with 4 episodes in. I still think it's the best season since series 10, maybe even series 9, and maybe topping series 10. I'm not sure yet. We'll see how it goes. But just quickly before we end, Charlie, Bill, Ryan, let's do our episode rankings. What do we give this out of 10? Charlie, I'll come to you first.
9 out of 10. It's I think not quite as good as Lux, but it's like it's marginally. I'll give this, like, out of 100, like an 88 or something. Okay. It's like it's up there. It's really strong.
And Ryan, what's your rank?
Probably a 9. I think somewhere between like an 8 or a 9, but I think I'm settling at a 9 at the moment.
Yeah. I think I'd probably agree. And Bill?
Yeah, I'm going to say a 9 for the time being. I mean, it might go as high as a near a 10 after watching it a second time. We'll just kind of see, I think, because as I said earlier, I might pick up little bits that maybe didn't work quite as well, or maybe I won't. 9 for now, definitely.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm somewhere around there, an 8.5 to a 9, something around there. I think Lux is still my favourite episode. I can't decide whether it is or not, but Lucky Day is very close. I think, especially these last 3 episodes, as we've said, have been top tier Doctor Who, and let's hope that continues for the next 4 episodes, and then we can be at least celebrating a great season of Doctor Who, even if it is the last one, for quite a while. But that is just about all we've got time for on this edition of the podcast. We will, of course, be back next week to talk about the story in the engine, and then all of the episodes to come in the rest of the season. But for now, from me, Charlie, Bill, and Ryan, it is goodbye.